With us now, Michael O'Hanlon, Philip H. Knight Chair in Defense and Strategy at the Brookings Institute, Glenn Ignazio, retired Air Force Special Operations Commander, Defense Intelligence Technology Innovator. Gentlemen, good to see you. Michael, to me, Venezuela, because of its connection with Russia and Putin's aggression against NATO, are linked in that you could see, right, Trump trying to raise the stakes in Venezuela and then trade and say, hey, look, we'll stop in Venezuela if you, Putin, stop in NATO, attacking or incurring in NATO, or make peace with Ukraine.
Well, Leland, that's an interesting theory, but I hope that's not all we've got. Here's why. I think Putin knows that Trump doesn't want another Iraq or Afghanistan. He doesn't want to do more than just shoot the occasional drug smuggling boat out in international waters. He doesn't want to own Venezuela. And so any threat that we made that implied we want to go in and overthrow his buddy there would perhaps not be credible. What I think President Trump's going to have to figure out a way to do is to stop arguing with India and Europe about economic pressure and join together with them in a much tougher economic package, and also commit the United States to keep supplying Ukraine with weaponry and other assistance indefinitely. Even if Europe does more, we should be their backup. So those are the things that I believe will be more crucial to trying to influence Putin's calculation. Right now, Putin still thinks he can outlast Trump, and that Trump's not really serious about being willing to accept anything.
And he has reason. Yeah, right. And to be fair, Putin has reason to believe that, right? Because Donald Trump said even before the summit in Alaska, look, this is the 2-week line. There has to be action or there'll be consequences. There's been no consequences. Glenn, does it come down from a military perspective simply to weaponry? If you give the Ukrainians Tomahawks, does it change everything? And for that matter, why haven't the Europeans, who have their own long-range weapon systems, given them to Ukraine?
Yeah, it would change the dynamics. And here's why. Ukraine has launched some, drones very, I would say they really didn't have an impact. They've gotten close into Moscow and into Moscow itself. But you also look at it, not to be, hypocritical for Russia, but I mean, they have taken weapons from Iran, North Korea, and others and used those to hit deep within Ukraine itself. So Russia has done that. Now, for the U.S. to give them long-range weapons, just like Iran did to Russia, will they be able to do that and hit Moscow? That's really the same plan on both sides. Now, is it going to be escalatory? Absolutely. So there's been more restraint on NATO and the EU because we didn't want to let them go deep into Russia. There's been restriction on those weapons. This would change things. So not having any kind of response from NATO, not holding the lines with the incursions, that's one of the things that's showing weakness. So there has to be something that's going to be pushing forward here. And those long-range weapons, will they do damage? Significantly, and I think it will escalate. But again, it's no different than Iran's weapons being used by Russia.
Michael, where is Putin in all this, except for, as I think you're pointing out, just kind of playing the long game, and so far hasn't been told or shown, I should say he's been told no, but he hasn't been shown no.
I think you're right. He is playing the long game, and he still has the instinct that time is on his side. And let's face it, he's also heartless and cynical and very callous. He's even willing to keep losing 1,000 Russian casualties a day. Leave aside his contempt for Ukraine. He's willing to sacrifice killed or wounded 1,000 of his own countrymen for incremental territorial gains because he thinks this serves the cause of greater Russia. He lives in history, these romanticized, distorted views of what is going to make Russia great, and you're going to have to get inside that headspace, inside that calculus, to change the way he's behaving.
Yeah, look, and Bill O'Reilly made a great point about this in his book, Confronting Evil. He said that Putin believes he is sort of the reincarnation of Stalin, wants to bring back the glory of the Soviet Union, and doesn't mind the Soviet tactics. He doesn't care about 1,000 Russian deaths a day, just the way Stalin didn't care about thousands upon thousands of deaths in the Battle of Stalingrad or other places that he inflicted those kinds of casualties. Glenn, at some point, there's a battlefield reality, which is that Putin has the world's either largest or second largest nuclear arsenal. Does he, at some point, have the upper hand? Yes, it's escalatory, but forgive the pun, he has the trump card. You can't give Ukraine nukes. He can do what he wants.
Yeah, it's well, one of the things that we see is we see Medvedev, and I always mess up his name, but Medvedev. That's always been the saber rattling, and he still is within the last 24 hours about escalating and stating that the nuclear presence, the nuclear power that Russia has, can always be brought to bear. And we've seen since the beginning of the war, where originally it was a special operations against Ukraine, and as slowly in time the propaganda has worked really well, that Putin, to his people and everybody, has made the conflict against NATO. So we've transitioned to that. So even though Russia has the nuclear, to even go to a tactical nuclear weapon, which is a small area, is a nuclear war. It doesn't matter if it's that or a
Right.
large megaton weapon. So the idea of rattling that is dangerous, and we have to believe it. We can never discard it. But that is pretty impressive to see what would happen if those Tomahawks got into Moscow. What would be the escalation? And honestly, I think it would be something that Russia would immediately go on a war footing and declare war. As soon as they declare war, the whole country stops and it changes to a different, basically, way of operations. The whole way that they change their industry, the way people are, everything would change. And I think that's what he's looking for. Is Putin's looking for an
Yeah, well,
excuse,
and also if
maybe,
he
to get to
feels
that.
that he's attacked by the United States or NATO
Right.
because of the weapons, then he gets to do so much more. Michael Hamlin, Glenn Ignazio, thank you both.